you know, there's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, you know, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.
Welcome to the Varside Spurs podcast once again. And once again, joining us is Rich, the Fred West of the podcast world. I'll leave you to explain that one, buddy.
Fucking hell, mate. You've thrown me under a bus there, haven't you? Or under a patio.
A patio, yeah.
I'm not actually the Fred West of the podcasting world, but they have found a body in the canal where I live. I could just, like, it was put on record that I have not killed anybody.
Just to make that clear.
Just want to make that clear from the outset. It was not me, Gov. You can't fucking prove it, and nobody saw me anywhere near.
Yeah, I set you up with that one, didn't I, mate? Sorry. Yeah, okay. I suppose we better just get straight into the match. Actually, pre-game, when I was walking, I went with my wife, actually. Normally I go with my son, but he couldn't make it that night. So, but as we're walking down the road, we come out one of the turnings near Northumberland Park. You know, there's a sort of some of the cars come down that way, don't they, in the park lane, and coming around one of the corners, being stopped physically by some of the sort of security down there was Fabio Paratici.
Yes, you messaged me about this. I didn't know if you were trying to wind me up or what.
No. He was there and his jumper, like, you know, having an argument. And I saw him. I went, blimey. And then my wife's like, what? You know, hadn't got a clue what I was talking about. I said, that's the Don. That's Fabio Paratici there. And she's still nonplussed. Like, no clue what I'm talking about. I couldn't help just give him a wave, and he gave a wave back. And I thought, I think he wants me to go over there and say, this is Fabio Paratici. He was the director of football here. Let him through, you know, because the people who were stopping the traffic hadn't a clue who he was.
Bizarre.
Yeah,
I mean,
bizarre, but
an Italian Nick.
Yeah, exactly. But it's curious, isn't it, how he's still coming to the games?
Yeah, very, very strange. Mind you, I think is he not still doing stuff for the club as some sort of consultant or something? Didn't they have some weird way of setting it all up at the end?
But I mean, I heard recently someone said that you know, all of that had come to an end. But if that has, well, you know, would be unusual, would it not, for him to be still sort of coming to the games? He could watch it at home.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, Tottenham's an arsehole of a place to get to at the best of times. So you've got no actual involvement in the club. Why would you fucking do it?
Yeah. Or maybe he's probably come, you know, trying to track Levy down in the boardroom and throw him a shit ton of invoices that he's that just kept coming back to him in the post.
Twist his arm to write his final check. Very odd. Anyway, there you are. Yeah. Well, I mean, he might have got stopped by security, but I had L-Zone game getting to the game on Monday, I'll tell you.
Really?
Yeah, it took me that last sort of quarter of a mile from, is it, you know, down towards where you drop off the North Circular at Wood End there, you know, that last quarter of a mile took me as long as the 100 and something miles before it put together.
Crikey.
Yeah, I thought I was actually going to be in time for a beer before the game this time, and I missed the kickoff yet again.
But you would bring your JCB, mate.
I mean, I would have thought it'd be fucking quicker, because out in the countryside, you put the yellow lights on and everybody gets out your fucking way.
Exactly. You could just scoop the cars up and move them one side.
But make any difference in London. They all just ignore you. I'm going to get me one of them little mopeds and pretend I'm a pizza delivery boy. I might get through then.
Yeah, that's the way, isn't it? That is the way. Anyway, so we'll get to the game. So just as the game started, actually, trumpet sounded again. Maybe a little moan for me on that one. I thought, I'm going to sound like a granddad here, I thought it was a bit too loud this time, and also too early. It felt like it just came a little bit too early. And then we got that bloody Star Wars music, which I what was, I just want to see the back of that song. I just thought the trumpet should be just as the game's about to kick off, not like 3 or 4 minutes before it. It just felt a little bit anticlimactic afterwards for me.
Well, I mean, like I say, it don't make no difference to me because I'm normally still fucking running, still running
Get
down
there.
my lane to get to the fucking ground when
Yeah.
that happens. So all of that, I mean, you could be talking in a foreign language as far as I'm concerned because I never get to see any of that business
No.
anymore.
Well, I mean, to be fair, there were a few people around me. In fact, the guy who sits next to me regularly, his family just had to jump out and come in, and he had to. And it took him. He didn't get in for the first 30 minutes. He couldn't find anywhere to park. He said it was absolute chaos and a nightmare around the ground. So, you by the sounds of it, you definitely weren't the only one, mate.
No. Well, I don't know whether or not, like I said, I don't want to spend the entire podcast talking about the North Circular, but there seemed to be a problem anyway because it was we were going great guns up until that last junction. But anyway, yeah, it's a common occurrence with me. Often I'm late because of work, and there's a standing joke in between my mate Chris and myself that they'll throw me a party if I ever make fucking kickoff.
Oh well, never mind. That's at least you got to the game anyway. It's a fair old trot, isn't it, for you to come there? So,
Yeah, weekday games are a bit of a nightmare, but anyway,
yeah,
it's worth it. So
yeah.
I don't know anything about all this trumpet business. Last thing I remember getting there early, it was still Roger Lloyd Pack doing his flicks and tricks bit.
That's it. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll get straight into the game then. So, did you have any sort of kind of apprehensive feelings for this particular game? I mean, it should have been a formality, shouldn't it? That's what everyone was sort of leading us to think. But how are you feeling vibe-wise about it?
No, I thought this was going to be a bit of a walkover. In fact, I expected us to score far more goals than we actually did, especially after what happened in the League Cup.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it felt like a bit of a revenge mission for that, didn't it? Because we were dreadful in that game.
Well, I mean, we got what we deserved for making so many changes, really. But yeah, I didn't have any concerns coming into this game at all, and that feeling was borne out. I think we controlled the whole thing from start to finish, didn't we? It was an absolute sort of masterclass in how to sort of hold a team off effectively, and that's pretty much what I expected. I'm just sorry we didn't score more.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I just had in the back of my mind at the start of the game, thought, you know what, it depends on how we start out on this. I mean, Fulham are no mugs. I mean, they're mid table, and I was having one of those little wobbly moments that when you kind of because we've been there, seen it, and got the bloody t-shirt, and I was just thinking, is this the time the wheels come off? So, I mean, I was generally, positive overall, but I was hoping for an early goal, which didn't quite come. But we did once again. I thought in the first half we kind of threw the kitchen sink at them, didn't we? We had a right good go at them in that first half. And what were your thoughts generally on the first half? Our sort of impetus and the way we approached it.
Aside from some of the profligate finishing, I thought it was a perfect 45 minutes of football. Really, I mean, now I might be reading a bit too much into this because I sort of looked at a couple of those wasted chances, particularly the Kulusevski one when he comes in, right up to the 6-yard box from the right there, and somehow manages to try and pass it. I thought across the box to Richarlison, who was on the other side of the goal. It seemed to me that on one or two occasions they were trying very hard to get the ball to Richarlison in scoring positions.
Yeah,
and maybe, like I say, it's maybe me reading too much into it and being aware of all the things that's going around Richie at the moment and all that, and thinking they're trying to help him get a goal, get it off his back, get him into the swing of it. Which, of course, is understandable, but, really and truly, they should have been fucking burying some of them themselves, and that Kulusevski one in particular.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was harder. I don't know. I mean, he could have tripped and fallen and stumbled over the fucking ball and still got it in the net from where he was,
Yeah. Well, I mean, we might as well look at that one because I and obviously that was towards the end of the first half. I honestly, I couldn't stop talking about it, and then even the next day, I'm thinking, why did he just not shoot? That was the game. That was
Yeah,
because it felt like that way, didn't it? I mean, I agree with you. I sort of settled down quite quickly once I saw the way we were approaching it. That first half, in particular, we'll come on to the second half in a minute, but I just felt that we were, we just had this game, and I thought, one goal was good, but two goals there, I thought that was it. That was, we got the game wrapped up because they just didn't look like they were, capable, really of. Doing too much to us. I mean, William was the pantomime villain, wasn't he? Throughout, every time he touched the ball, he got booed. And there were some lovely tackles from Van der Ven on him. In fact, there was one I think in that first half where he looked like he was about to get through, and Van der Ven sort of like belted it up there and just took the ball off him. It was amazing.
yeah,
But
I mean,
sorry.
I think the thing with it was, oddly enough, my neighbour here is a Fulham fan, and I was talking to him about it after the game, and I hadn't realised that Raul Jimenez is coming back from an injury, because I said they were toothless. Really, I said you appear to be relying an awful lot on William, and he's a busted flush now. I mean, he runs around a lot, but he can't. Whether it's that he's losing a bit of an edge, whether it's the team around him, whether it's the tactics, whether it's a combination of all them things. But he just seems to be this kind of busy nobody. He sort of runs around in circles and doesn't do anything with it.
No.
And I said to Chris here about it, and he said, "Oh well," he said. He said, I think, they're having to rely on him a lot. He said, Jimenez has just come back from injury, so he's not properly fit, and it kind of shows how threadbare they are. And I think the game sort of showed that, because we were sort of holding them off effectively, weren't we? I mean, that one chance, Mickey van der Ven running back, that was fucking beautiful,
Yeah.
We all sort of sat there, because I was up in the gods in the Paxton, and so we sort of looked down over it as it came, and everybody around me went, fucking hell, because you just think, like, how many other Spurs centre halves would have been caught flat-footed from that and would not have got anywhere near him,
He's not just rapid though, is he? He's like, he's a really good footballer.
Yeah, really, really good. I mean, and I think, other people have said this as well before, but I think it shows how much confidence the others have got in him already. You can see how much calmer Christian Romero is.
Yeah.
He seems to be more assured. His game seems to be more assured, and I'm sort of looking at that and thinking it's because he's not constantly looking over his shoulder, thinking where the fuck is Eric Dyer or where the fuck is David Sanchez. He knows that there's other guys here who's going to sort of who's got his back.
Yeah. And on that front, actually, I mean, I thought Romero had also an absolutely terrific game. I mean, there were some amazing sort of tackles and headers, and I thought he was imperious. So, it feels like we've kind of somehow got ourselves a back five, include Vicario, who are light years ahead of what we had last season. It's almost incomprehensible how much better they all are than last season. I mean, and obviously the number of them are new players, but what a contrast, considering, like, within that short space of time, like we're talking like 9 games and a couple of pre-seasons, you've got one of the best defenses in the Premier League. I mean, that's not just subjectivity. That's statistics.
Yeah, I did. I was reflecting on this afterwards, actually, walking back to the car, that and I should make this absolutely clear from the outset that I'm not drawing a direct comparison in between the two sort of defenses. But I remember I was walking back to the car thinking, I've not been as calm under attack as in the sort of heyday of Alderweireld and Vertonghen. Because whatever happened, you would sort of look at them and think, Toby's got that. there'd almost be a sort of nonchalance in it as a spectator. Well, they might turn one, but they ain't going to get past the other one, And I'm beginning to feel a little bit like that now, in the respect that, like you say, this time last year, a ball had come over the top, and you'd think, "Fucking hell, here we go."
Mm-hmm. I mean, the only weak link we've got in that whole system, that whole back five, is the fact that we don't have any backup in case one of those gets injured. That's the only weakness, because the whole lot of them are absolutely incredible. I mean, they're equally brilliant. I mean, Udogie, Romero, Vicario, obviously Van der Ven. I mean, and Porro, has been the biggest surprise for me. The way he's adapted, he's a real leader. I mean, when you see, you don't really see it on the TV. When you're at the games, you see him off the ball, like geeing up everyone and shoulder charge them, and he really takes his job. Like we said this in previous pods, but he really takes his job as a defender very, very seriously, and that keeps everyone on their toes. It's very we're a unit. And they see that, you can say there's a real identity there amongst them all. They look like they're proud of doing that role.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it, to think that so many of those players, Porro being a prime example, came in while Conte was still in charge of the club. And I mean, obviously he sort of came in at the end of January, so there's a very small sort of window there, and then it all sort of, well, it had already gone to shit in reality, hadn't it? But then, of course, all the managerial changes started. But, he didn't, from the outset, he didn't seem to look like he fitted anywhere. He didn't seem to look like he really wanted to be there. We were all sort of scratching our heads wondering why we bought him. He'd sort of looked like he'd been scratching his head wondering how he got there.
Mm-hmm.
And in the space of 8 or 9 months, a vastly improved player. And you sort of go through the members of that sort of first team that are still there from that time, and you think there isn't one of them whose game hasn't drastically improved. And you've got to ask yourself, what the hell was going on at the club at the start of the year?
I think, I mean, it's very, very difficult, isn't it? I think it also, speaks volumes about the importance of a good manager and motivator. Obviously, tactically, his ideas are different. But there's just something extra as a dimension about the players themselves. They look taller, they've grown, And again, I'm speaking generally about the players, because some of those weren't there under Conte. But there's just something about the way that we feel about ourselves. I suppose it's difficult to really know what's gone on, but you reading behind the lines, based upon some of the stuff we've read, we've seen, and we've talked about before. But you feel that there's there's this real element, not just of a collective sense amongst them, and they're talking about the club like you saw that tweet that came out with James Maddison. He's got the Spurs behind him, and he's in this kind of that he gets it kind of vibe, right? Like Ange gets it, Maddison gets it, Son gets it. We haven't had that for ages. But one of the worst aspects about Conte, and let's have it right, he has been a world-class manager before, but some people just don't fit. But was he didn't get it, and the fact that he always made us feel, and the players feel, like we just weren't good enough. And you get exactly the opposite. I mean, there's a lot of players there that are quite not only inexperienced in the league, but young players, and yet you wouldn't know it. And that has to come down to Ange and the way that he, approaches the game, and the way that he instills a belief. And maybe we just got, maybe we've got lucky, in terms of some of that recruitment, but also with Ange and being this perfect motivator for the type of player. Maybe he needs that kind of younger player to mold, and who will just completely trust in him, because that style needs ultimately, full on trust, doesn't it? But
Mm.
I just feel that we'll talk about this later on. This could we vibe, right? That's going around at the moment. But it just but there's something happening. It feels, doesn't it? Or maybe I'm being a bit kind of optimistic here, but it feels like something's happening.
Well, something is happening. We're all enjoying football again, aren't
Well,
we? I mean,
exactly. If that's it all,
yeah.
if that's all it is, it's amazing. And and all these celebration police that are just telling us don't get overexcited. Fuck that.
Oh yeah,
I'm entitled to bloody enjoy what I'm watching and get excited. And yeah, I've seen so much shit
yeah.
in the last
Well,
few
I
years.
mean, I know I've said this before. My reaction to all these people is always the same: fuck off and mind your own business.
Yeah,
It's got nothing to do with anybody else how much we enjoy it or don't enjoy it. And you hear it. Oh yeah, you're fucking celebrating like you've won something already, empty trophy cabinet and all that. And I just think you fucking losers, go and get involved in something important. Fuck off and leave me alone,
yeah.
children.
It's probably because they're scared. I
Oh
mean, to some degree, I mean, we, if we're honest, we probably did a little bit the same with Arsenal last year, did we? The fact that they've not played anyone yet and all that kind of stuff. But and ultimately they did shit the bed, which was great. But
yeah,
but
yeah.
but there's just that real sense that we all love each other again. We love the players, the club, the manager, the fans are hugging each other, and that kind of stuff that does have an impact on a direction of travel, I think.
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. And like we've sort of said before, the thing about Ange is he seems to understand it.
Yeah, and he's mining it and good. He's clever at doing that. And
Yeah,
I wonder
yeah,
if that sort of antipodean thing where they, obviously their sports are tend to be rugby and all that kind of stuff. A lot of that psychology is used in those
yeah.
games, and he's maybe brought some of that to it, maybe perhaps.
Well, yeah. I mean, it seems like a very astute managerial appointment now, doesn't it?
Mm.
Very, very much so. And let's hope that continues.
Right, getting back to the game, shall we? So Richie has a side foot effort that left me shouting, "You prick!" at one point, because
Oh
it just
my!
goes wide, and I'm thinking, how did he miss that? I mean, come on, you got to get that on target. And he looked, I thought, a little bit kind of sorry for himself. That said, afterwards, I thought he had a bloody great game. There was that moment that I put my head in my hands, but after that, I just thought he did start to grow into that position. What do you make of him playing out on that left, Rich?
Well, I mean we all had a bit of a groan at that chance, didn't we? I said to the bloke next to me that he couldn't buy a dose of the clap in a brothel, could he? At the minute, that bloke, he's got he's got no look. He's the shades of Soldado finishing about him at the minute, and it's
No, I
I
feel
don't
like a
know.
hypocrite because we try to stick up for him, haven't we? But and I,
Yeah, no, I mean, don't. I mean, there's two things to say. The first thing is never ever be scared of hypocrisy, Lee.
no,
And
no,
and the other thing is, I am still largely going to defend him because I
yeah,
think he's a fucking blinding game. And if you look at some of the chasing back and some of the crucial, critical tackles in the middle of the park and in and around our area, it was Richarlison right the way
mm-hmm.
through the game. I mean, he never stops moving. And the thing that you can say to him is, yeah, you know what? Like he couldn't hit the side of a barn with a blunderbuss at the minute when it comes to scoring, but he sure as hell is contributing a lot to the overall team and to the
Yeah,
game. So you can't say, even though he's not putting the ball in the net, you cannot say that it's a wasted space in the starting 11
no,
because he runs his fucking heart out. He never stops. And yeah, you can see his head going down when he hits Rose head again. And you
mm-hmm.
can see, you can hear the jeers and the, oh God, and everybody goes, oh, for fuck's sake. But his shoulders never drop. He gets up, and 9 times out of 10, after he's really really missed something, he runs down the other end of the pitch and kicks the shit out of somebody, and I fucking love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Well, you know what? I mean, he is a skillful player, and he is obviously, as a lot of people pointed out, a confidence player. But one word I think also characterizes him is industrious.
Yeah,
He just he's relentless, and I think that role, maybe we just have to readjust, like thinking, okay, we thought he would be the Kane replacement, the striker. He's not. Like Son deserves to be there, and if he chips in, 7, 8, 9 goals in the season, but he plays like that, will just sort of loads of industry, and and sets up because he set up. We get onto that goal now, but it was a bit of pressing by Van der Ven. I must mention that because I thought that was exceptional, and then he passes it to Richie. Richie finds a space. Richie then sets him up, so it's a nice assist. And then of course, when you see Son shape up like that, you know he's going to curl one in the top.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it was beautiful, and yeah, I mean, the question you originally asked me is how do I think he's playing in that role on the left, and I think on the balance of all the evidence, I think he's doing a really good job.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's it. Maybe as I say, maybe we just kind of readjust to that instead of like being on his case because he's not scoring enough goals, that he's actually contributing enough to the team. That's his benefit. That's his upside.
Well, I think, if you can say one thing about the way the team is set up at the moment, it seems to be deliberately constructed around the idea that it's nobody's responsibility to put the ball in the net. It's everybody's responsibility. And so, rather than having that Harry Kane type focal point as, Kane's going to get 30 of them in a year and you get it into him and he will stick it in the net. Maddison's already got a few. Son started to rack up. I think he's probably already scored more than he scored last season. They're coming from defence. They're coming from all over the pitch. And that collective responsibility of scoring goals is probably the best way that we can not only counter Richarlison's supposed drought. And like you say, if we're thinking about him in a different role, then we have to question whether it is actually a drought. But it's also the best way for us to combat the possible side effects of us not having another centre forward sitting on the bench to cover for injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. What about talking about our centre forwards? I mean, maybe it looked different on TV. I don't know, but for me in the ground, Sonny looked like he'd been brought down for a pen, but then it was right on the edge of the box. I was convinced that was a pen that was going to VAR, but nothing. But did it seem like a pen to you, or?
Well, I thought it was outside the box from
your angle. Yeah.
From where we were sat, which is sort of was above the corner. I thought it tight, but I didn't think it was inside.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'd forgotten all about it. Now you mention it, I do remember, but it's not something that was pivotal enough either way for it to have stuck in my memory that I thought that I've made a note to bring it to this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. What if we look at a player that I thought had a good game, but was a replacement for Bissouma, Højbjerg. What did you think about him? Was he an able deputy for the game, do you think?
Yeah, I think he did a job, didn't he? I think the best thing that I can say about him is that I don't have anything to say about him either way.
Apart from the fact that he nearly did a Basuma and got sent off.
Yeah,
because he had a dive in the box, didn't he? At that, do you remember that? So he was like, he's got his yellow card, and then he's on that, and then later on he sort of fell over in the box, and I think the ref was going to get a yellow card out, and then he realised he'd given him a yellow and he would be off. And he changed his mind. For this time, I thought, because we'll look at the ref. I thought he had a good game, and he used his intelligence there to think, no, that would spoil the game, and it would be a bit harsh. Whereas the last game, obviously, the ref sent Bissouma off for that one. But yeah, I thought that was the only thing. I thought he was going to repeat what Bissouma did, and nearly got. You nearly used the daft arts, as we called it last time.
Yeah. I will sort of say on that, though, I think the referee, although I won't pretend to have remembered every incident that I see, and obviously when you talk about refereeing, there's always somebody on the internet that goes, oh, well, actually, there was this obvious mistake that you haven't remembered. But I think in general, he handled a lot of he considered, talking about diving and simulation and those things. Throughout the game, I thought he handled it really well on both sides because he just seemed to fucking ignore it.
And it was a fair bit of play acting, wasn't there?
Yeah, and as the game went on, you noticed that players would go down and go, "Oh, this hurts so much. My children are crying," and then they realise the game's moved on, and they suddenly go, "Oh, fuck it, I'm all right," and they're up they go. And I was sat there watching that, thinking there needs to be a lot more of this.
Yeah,
just ignore it. Don't be fucking stupid. Of course, you're not injured. And then the one time that it really did need, I think it was Pat Sarr, wasn't it? Went down and he did stop them. I mean, obviously they carried on for a bit and then put the ball out of play, but he did bring it back and allow the time then. So I think I just I wanted to make just a note of it on here because I thought he did really well with that because I mean we're not innocent of it by any stretch of the imagination, obviously, which is why Basuma wasn't playing on Monday. But I think Fulham really did try to sort of slow the game down and get it stopped for niggling. Oh my God, he looked at me funny. I must be injured.
Yeah.
Rolling about, and he wasn't having any of it. And I thought, fair play to you.
And when the ref plays like that, you don't really notice the ref because he's not getting involved in everything. He's just letting it go. And that's, I think, when your ref's done a good job. When you're barely having to talk about the ref because it's not been their show, if you know what I mean. They've been splashing the cards and sending people off and then pulling people back for things they probably shouldn't have. And it's just using the common sense.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I mean, I was very gratified to see that's how it was all being handled anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then we I missed this. I didn't realise they were going to do it, but I'd gone out onto the concourse at halftime, and then I saw your message that they did a lovely tribute to Pete Hain.
Yeah, he did. He said a few words about Pete. It was very nice, right at the very start of the halftime break. So I think it was right at the very start. Anyway, it was certainly before they went on and did the whole Bobby Charlton bit, So I was pleased that they did that. I think Pete lived and breathed the club, and I think it's only fitting that he should have had a mention in dispatches. And Coity said that that he knew Pete and that Pete had put his life and soul into the club, and that his thoughts are with his family and what have you. And I thought it was nicely done. So yeah.
Oh, that's good. Well done, the club. I think some people were trying to organise a round of applause in the 67th minute, but I didn't notice that personally. But where I was anyway.
No, I can't say. I mean, I didn't know anything about it, so yeah.
No. Anyway, so we go on to the second half, and I thought I'll get your thoughts in general on it, but personally I thought we kind of took our foot off the gas a little bit, and Fulham grew in confidence, and then we sort of had to see Vicario spring into action, who I thought pulled off a couple of absolutely amazing saves. One of them from a header that I thought was absolutely nailed on. I think that was actually I can't remember if that was the first or the second half now, but I know he had a couple of great saves that he did. But I just thought overall, I think we kind of, it's not that we weren't sort of working hard and pressing, but we'll come on to this, but Ange commented on it as well. But I just felt that we kind of out of possession eased off a lot, and that sort of allowed the impetus to swing their way in at various points, and they could have scored. And I wouldn't have been surprised if they would have got one. But as I say, Vicario came to the rescue. What did you feel? Did you feel that the second half contrasted with the first half to you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought, to be honest with you, I kind of expected it because, of course, we play again on Friday night, don't we? So, I mean, in terms of our season of fixtures, it's quite a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
So I wondered if there was a little bit of the tactical about that. I expected it. The one thing I will say is, I agree completely that I think there was far less impetus, especially after the second goal. There were one or two what you might call hairy moments, but of course they were playing towards me where I was sat in the second half. And although there was one or two times. There were actually one or two times when I thought we'd have let that one in last year.
Mm.
I wasn't overly concerned. My heart rate never really got going, even when, they were sort of turning us round and breaking over the top of us and what have you, it had sort of come down to Willian or they very quickly cover would get back. So yeah, they obviously did have chances, but I don't remember being massively concerned about it. But the one thing I will say is that because we were attacking away from where I was sitting, I didn't notice it so much in the first half, but when they were playing towards the Park Lane, I noticed how high our residual position is, how high we set that line, where the last man is, and where we seem to be controlling. I just want to sort of coin an almost Mourinho phrase now, which is resting without the ball and resting with the ball. Whether we were in or out of possession, there seemed to be an awful lot of holding them at arm's length. And by that, I mean, we had a really high line for huge periods of time. When we were in possession of the ball without any attacking outlets, we seemed to channel it into their right back zone, which seemed to be like a real point of weakness for them. And that seemed to be like a really, really effective holding place for us to have the ball while we shaped and pulled people about and tried to make space. And aside from that, they were obviously trying to push and turn on the break and come over the top of us or come through us quickly to get, a goal, like I say, on the break. But what actually happened, or what I could see from where I was sitting, or what it looked like from where I was sitting, was because we were squeezing them between these 2/3 of the pitch, their entire team seemed to sit in a slither either side of the halfway line for huge periods of that second half. And it was like they couldn't fucking get the ball out from between them. They were all in one place. And from where I was watching, it just seemed like you can't lay a glove on us one way or the other. We're not breaking quickly to try and convert opportunities into goals quickly as we've been known to do in years. We're not playing total possession football and passing it round and try to bore you to death by doing it, the sort of Guardiola way or what have you. But what we have done is we've squeezed you, and you've come here thinking you're going to pack the midfield and then hit us on the break. And what we've actually done is used that against you, because your players are already operating in a tight space, and we're just making it slowly ever tighter. Each time we turn you around, that space gets a little bit more and more squeezed, and they get a little bit more compressed. And I just thought, fucking hell, if that's what they're doing, that's beautiful. That's really well done, because they're exerting no effort in the game. They're not having to chase at their goal to keep the ball.
Almost like a boxer, kind of like, a bit of tactics, really, just keeping them at arm's length and just sort of jabbing away and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Rest a bit. You don't have to be. You don't have to be directly pressing. You can press them out of possession, but you don't have to be on the break all the time, especially if you're already there, because when that gap does open, as we see for the second goal, it came over quite quickly and it turned round and all of a sudden the space was there and he was moving and it was in. But I thought it was great. I've not seen us handle a game like that in person in a long time.
No. I mean, I agree. I'm not sure Ange fully agree, but we'll come on to that now. Yeah. So we then ended up scoring. Maddison put through by Son, and then Maddison scores a lovely goal, and which had me and the missus doing the dart celebration in the crowd, which was everyone was like, "Phew, thank God!" I think we all realised at that point. Then, okay, that's game, and even though I think it was like 55th minute or something, wasn't it? Yeah, but then we like you say, if we go back to that sort of last point, I think that was a sort of point well made, actually, how we sort of kept them at arm's length and kind of like compressed them in that midfield area, and they just there was no way for them really to make much of an impact. They huffed and puffed, and I thought they had they seemed to have a reasonable amount of the ball actually at certain points, but they just couldn't do much with it. And but that's what I think when I was referring to what Ange was saying. I'm not actually sure Ange is thinking along the same lines as we were thinking when you were sort of mentioning about what we were doing sort of tactically in that midfield, because he said in his sort of various press conferences that he thought we played well in the first half, not so well in the second half. And the reason why he was very disappointed with the way we played in the second half is because not because we lacked industry. With the ball, he thought we sort of pressed. With the ball, he thought we sort of were okay, but less so without the ball. And he thought that at that point we maybe became a bit complacent and wasn't what he's been trying to get into them. And I think you could see the kind of like frustration in his face. That's because everyone was saying, professional job well done. You got a game on Friday, so you obviously, you've made the subs and all that kind of stuff with that in mind. But he seemed to think, well, actually, that's not really the way I like to play, because he's always famed for this kind of, we never stop, foot on, the foot on their throat kind of stuff. And, but I do wonder, like you mentioned as well about the subs, whether that was one of the reasons, because we did make quite a lot of subs, whether that was one of the reasons for the change in sort of impetus and, that sort of change in dynamic in the game, do you think? Or maybe was it just that we did become complacent a bit?
Well, it might have been a combination of both, really, mightn't it? I mean, I think if you look at the players when, obviously you replace that entire three, when you take Richarlison off, you lose all of the industry that was probably between Maddison's passing and Richarlison's generally just being an absolute pain in the arse to everybody. Those are the two big catalysts for us pushing the ball forwards and converting possession into scoring opportunities. And I think for him to replace that front line and for us to then expect to be able to just transition to, different personnel without any change in dynamic, especially when it's those players, I think is optimistic in a game like that. I mean, I think at that point there was nothing riding on the game, was there? I mean, had Fulham had scored, even if they were, if we were 2-1 up instead of 2-0 up, it might have been different because there might have been more of an obvious, need or requirement to push things on. But I don't know. I mean, it was getting on for 9:30 on Friday night, on Monday night by then.
Yeah,
I don't blame them sort of going, oh, I fucking had enough now.
No. But I mean, I suppose that's the difference. We see it as a sort of professional job. Ange sees it. That's not if you like in line with stylistically how he sees the game being played. I like that actually. There's an element of that which I think speaks volumes of his mentality. That even though we've done a bang up professional job, that's still not good enough, and it's still not where he wants us to be. And I think he's been at pains, hasn't he, to state, look, we are very early in all of this process, and I'm not telling fans how to think and whatever it is. So get carried away, enjoy yourself, but also know that we are still early in terms of the way I want us to play consistently, and also in terms of squad development. So, I mean, there's so much to be excited about in terms of if this is where we are now, and when he gets that fully into the way we play, and then of course, where he rebuilds, the next, 2 or 3 transfer windows, I think it's going to be very, very exciting times.
Yeah. And I mean, on that, I think if, had he have come out and gone, yeah, that was job well done, that was exactly what we wanted, then I think you'd be worried, wouldn't you? Because like you say, we are only 9 league games into this first season of his, and you would expect that there is still a lot of improvement to come. So I think it's all encouraging, I mean, I think, I don't think there's any playing politic in it from his perspective, is there? He's not sort of giving it it could be better, like some managers are never happy. I think it's an honest assessment of the fact that, there were 1 or 2 opportunities that they had to score that they shouldn't have been given. and yeah, that he's kind of highlighting that keeps us all grounded, and I think it is a very positive way of looking at it. That it'll do for now, but it's not how we want it. I mean, the reality is he might only have been happy if we'd have come running out 6-0 winners, But if that's what he's expecting, then I'm all for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's only to be admired, isn't it? Really, and I suppose what he's just sending out a message to everyone and to the players and through the media and to everyone. Look, this is how we see the game being played. And to be fair, that I suppose if you think about it, those top teams like Man City, that's how they play. There's no sympathy. There's no resting. There's no let's just manage the game. They do put their foot on the throat of the opposition, no matter what the standard, what the team is. They all look hungry, don't they? For possession and for goals, and I think the top teams do. They're relentless, and I think that's kind of what he wants us to be, that relentless beast who just doesn't take any pity on the opposition. It just as what's that game called, Mortal Kombat. He wants you to go out there and just finish it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing about it in context is that without even looking to recent champions like Man City and Liverpool are also a team that will do it to you. They don't sort of sit back at 1 or 2-0 up and go, right, that's the job done. That's one thing. You look at those who are our biggest challengers for placement in the table at the end of the year. Newcastle are routinely putting half a dozen goals past people. And if it's going to be a good season and if it's going to be tight, it might come down to goal difference, a Champions League space.
Yeah, good point.
Or anything else, And so I think it's only right that we go out there and put these sides to the sword if we can, because, if we miss out, let's say if we have, going back to our expectations before the season kicked off and us all saying, well, it'd be good to get into the Champions League spaces again. And if we ended up missing out on a Champions League spot next year on goal difference because, we've taken our foot off the pedal 2 or 3 matches across a season, then fucking hell, we'll all be kicking ourselves. So I think it's only right that's how he looks at it.
Yep, absolutely. And just going back to me saying that we made quite a number of subs with the Palace game in mind. Let's jump ahead then to the Palace game on Friday, which is we're recording this on the Wednesday. It's pretty soon, so I believe they have 2 key players missing. I can't remember the second one, but I think Eze is one of them. So that goes in our favour. We should have Biss back. Yasuma should be back.
Yeah.
And maybe even Bentancur could make the bench, do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, he's I was just going to say, he's getting really close now, isn't he? And it'll be interesting to see how they integrate him. I mean, it's nice that we're not desperate for him to come back, because one of the things that we've been guilty of doing over the last few years is rushing key players back from injury, and then they've never really been the same ever since. I mean,
whose place does he take though? I mean, if he comes in, I'm assuming Sarr, but that would be pretty harsh, would it?
Well, I mean, Sarr looked like he was carrying a bit of a knock, didn't he, when he went off?
Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how he plays in a fully functional midfield alongside Bissouma, because I mean, before he got injured, we were all wowed at his technical ability. I mean, we'd have 2 beautiful ball playing midfielders in the centre of the park if they can pair up well. Maybe they'll need to rotate. Maybe they will just offer, different things to a game, and that will allow us to have a little bit of variety in the way that we set up. I don't know, but I would be really pleased for us, while we are not desperate for to be playing him, to see him phased back in a really careful way, because that was a nasty injury and it could change the way that he plays if we don't manage it well. Which, we like to say, we've been famous for doing it badly in the past. I mean, as for Palace, they're having a rare old time at the minute. And anyway, I mean, they've had a few bad results, haven't they? They played off the park at Newcastle recently.
I think you owed me you said you owed me a bollocking. Is that right?
Well, I was going to bring this up because you said you went into this game full of nerves, and I thought
Yeah.
this isn't the bloke. This isn't
No,
the bloke.
I'm going to blame you.
We're going to
You
be
put those
5
doubts
points
in my
clear at
mind
the weekend. Yeah.
because I said
Listen,
it's just the
I don't make
context of.
Yeah, I don't make the fucking rules, right? You don't go onto a public forum like a WhatsApp chat and say things like "we're going to be 5 points clear by the weekend come in," because it's just we're Tottenham fans, we're realists, you know. We know that they're tempted too much fun.
Yeah, I did for the benefit of the listeners. I got right royally bullied on my WhatsApp thread with these guys who were just telling me, "Shut the fuck up," don't say that, don't say. Yeah, no, to be honest, it was tongue in cheek. I keep expecting a banana skin as well, which is why I was a bit nervous on Monday. I'll be nervous again a little bit on Friday, even though logic tells me we'll have too much for them. But yeah, Rich, we could go 5 points fucking clear after playing 10 games. I mean, okay, that's there's still a long way to go, but already we've got a manager who is the best ever in the Premier League as a new manager in terms of starts, the best ever in the history of the Premier League. That's nothing to be sniffed at already. That is the case. If we go 5 points clear on Friday, which we could, that's that feels to me like a little bit of a sort of moment for us in terms of self-belief.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pivotal game, isn't it? Away at Selhurst is never
Never
going to
easy.
be, depending, regardless of their form. They are a little bit toothless because of injuries. They're in a bad run of form, but let's not grant them too many plaudits. They are, from what I've seen of them this year, fucking woeful. I mean, they've gone back to Roy Hodgson, who we've all got a lot of time for because he appears to be a gentleman and he's an ambassador of the game and all of these things. But I mean, they're not a team that's evolving. They're a team that's in a holding pattern. They're losing pivotal players year on year. They don't really appear to have a huge amount of identity, and we should be taking them. I expect it'll be far tighter than Monday's game, but I do expect that we'll come away. And even if we come away from that with a point, that means we go into the weekend 3 points clear of the second place team, which means, depending on how many goals are scored and conceded in any of their games, I mean, it's unlikely that both of them will lose over the weekend, but
well,
and regardless of that, I think it's wonderful because we're streets ahead of where we thought we were going to be, aren't we?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, that's it, and that should take the pressure off us. Really, we Ange has been at pains to play down expectations, and I think we're seeing good football, and we're not really getting too carried away. Although some are. We'll come on to that to finish off with, but yeah, I mean, I think that game we would in previous seasons be expecting a certain person, metaphorical, to turn up to that game, wouldn't we? Whose first name is prefixed with a doctor.
Yeah, and it's not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
but I don't feel that. Naively, I don't know how. I just don't. I don't feel comfortable with how I feel about the way we're playing at the moment. Rich, help me. I might need a doctor.
It's rarefied air, isn't it, at the minute that we're breathing? That's the difference. We're not used to being this good.
No.
I said to you, my neighbour here is a Fulham fan, and he said to me, "You must have a fucking nosebleed being up at the top of the table again." I said, well, we were for a bit, previously, but yeah, I mean, if we can pull off a win on Friday night, and I think we should be winning this one on Friday, all things considered.
The bigger tests to come, we know that, but
I mean, this is it. I mean, I've seen a lot of discourse about this. Spurs haven't played anybody of note yet. Well, we've played Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man United.
Yeah, and those teams that we've played also have done and will take points off other teams. You know, apart from one or two of them, none of them are mugs, are they?
No, absolutely. You know, I mean, Woolwich were the champions elect last year until they shit the bed. So, you know, I mean, I think, you know, as far as tough tests go, if we can go to the Swamp and come away with a point, there's no reason why we can't go to a car park in South London and come back with all three.
And you know, I think we could have won that game at the Emirates as well. But you know, some of those other games that we played, you know, they were tough games. You know, Brentford and teams like that, and you know, no easy teams to play away. And I know we got the point there, but other teams are going to go there and lose. Bigger teams, you know, say big teams. Anyway, just to finish off on, there seems to be this thing going around that it started on one pod and seems to have gone to lots and lots of other pods. So I thought it'd be remiss if we didn't say it, but could we?
Of course we could, yeah. Whether we will or not is an entirely different
thing. Yeah, I don't know whether it's cringe or whether it's actually just, as Ange said, just let them fucking enjoy it.
Well, yeah, I mean, as our mate Andy said at the start of the season, all we wanted was to enjoy the football again. Right? And without being too pappy about it, I'm enjoying the football. So as far as I'm concerned, we've already won, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, it'd be lovely to think that if this winning run continues and if Woolwich drop a couple of points here and there, and Man City have been stuttering, they've already lost twice this season, you know?
I mean, if we can keep injury free, we've actually got a big advantage. The fact that we don't play midweek.
Well, I mean, you think about Conte's Chelsea team that won the league. They weren't in the Champions League or the UEFA Cup that year. They played 38 games in the league that season, and they won the league. You know,
yeah.
I mean, granted, they cheated their way to it because it was when they had Costa up front, who you only had to look at him and he would fall over and get a penalty, and you know, but you know, the point stands. I think that could be a huge advantage. I think I expect us to make a couple of really clever signings in January. I honestly expect us to do good business this January.
Yeah.
And I think if we're still in and amongst that top 3 or 4 at the end of that window, then the pressure begins to build on Arsenal, on Manchester City, and on Liverpool in the Champions League. You know, in whatever competition they're in. Then, you know, I mean, it'd be great if Arsenal, you know, they drop down into the UEFA Cup or something, and then have to play 1,500 games in a month or however it is to get to the final. You know, they all have to go off and play twice a week and fly here, there, and everywhere. The pressure builds on them. Newcastle are back in Europe for the first time really in years. That's, you know, that's going to.
By the way, Tonali's been banned for 10 months.
Yeah. Yes.
He's a key player for them, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, if there's any justice in the world, this time next year, Eddie Howe will be teaching PE in a secondary school
or the England manager. Which is worse, I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be a good way of getting rid of him, wouldn't it? Get him the England job. Yeah. To be honest, England would be glad to watch if he managed them either, would they?
Yeah, exactly. But it looks like that's on the cards, doesn't it? Anyway, so in terms of you know, Southgate moving on.
Yeah, well, at least we're not in a position where he'll be touting for our job like he has been in the past.
Yeah, thank fuck.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know. I think we're more likely to lift an FA Cup than win a league, and I'd love that. I think that'd be a way to do this.
I think we look in good shape for a top 5 finish. I'd be happy with that in an FA Cup. That, you know, that'd still be dreamland for me.
Do you know? I think there's and you know, I'm veering dangerously towards doing the thing that I told you off for on the WhatsApp group. But to me, you know, I tend to, you know, I write and I'm a storyteller and I write these things for academically and all that. So I have a mind that looks at narratives, yeah. And to my mind, there is an inevitable narrative about Harry Kane leaving Spurs and the season after us winning some. It's just, you know, it's. Alanis Morissette would have written a song about it in the early 90s. You know, it's except
for most of the things she put in that song weren't actually ironic, were they?
I know, yeah. Isn't that the irony of the song, though?
I don't know. Is it, or is that what she's just said afterwards, just to kind of save face? I don't
Yeah,
know. Great
I don't
song,
know.
by the way.
Yeah, but it's that with an eye on that narrative, I just sort of think, fucking hell, it's like destiny in it.
Yeah.
Kate plays all them years, scores all them goals, fails to show up in any of the finals, leaves empty-handed. The minute his back turns, I mean, I'd fucking love it. Don't get me wrong, love the guy, Tottenham legend and all that, but I just think that would make the perfect narrative arc.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah, and I still think we should rename that beer one of our own, Snake Oil, instead of that. Anyway, on that note, we'll bring it to an end. And thanks for joining us again, Rich. Been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Looking forward to Friday.
Right, yeah, Friday night then. I'm going to nip out and see whether or not the police have still shut the towpath, whether they found any more bodies or...
Found any evidence trailing back to your boat?
You'd have heard the door knock.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, I shouldn't joke about it, should I really? But
well, I don't know what's happened, whether or not whether it's been in an accident or what have you. Some poor sods lost their life anyway.
Yeah,
Anyway, thoughts are with them. And let's here's to you not tempting fate too much and to us going 5 points clear.
Yeah, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
There's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.